All right, on this episode of Ask Coach Gallagher, we're talking about power or wattage on the bike, Greg, and what are the benefits of using power on the bike, and why should people maybe invest in a power meter?
Well, in my opinion, the power is it's right there. It's instant. It's not going to give you a lag. It's not going to be delayed. When you train with heart rate, you could be going along and then you start climbing the hill and you're feeling great, but your heart rate isn't changing. So you're going really hard, and all of a sudden, before you know it, your heart rate's out of the roof. But with power, you can see it consistently. As you increase your power to go up a hill, you can see it, you can maintain it, you can control it. But with heart rate, it's too variable. You can't control it like you can with power. So you get more of a instant reading with power than you do with heart rate.
So, for example, if the conditions are hot outside, that will change your heart rate versus the power is power regardless of the conditions.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. You could race here in the Pacific Northwest at a specific heart rate, specific power. You go over to Hawaii, it's going to blow it out of the water. Your heart rate's going to be so much higher there because of the heat and humidity that your body isn't, say, used to here in Washington and Spokane. So, power is, for me, power on the bike is a must. I've asked my athletes to get power meters. If they haven't, you don't have to go with the biggest and best, but they make several different ranges. You can get Cork, I think Cork for just $1,200, or you can go SRM for close to $4,000. So you pick what you want to spend, and it's going to give us an answer.
Why do people tend to blow up? Tell me what factors lead to blowing up on the bike, because it tends to be a lot about pacing based on your distance.
For sure. Each race, depending on the distance, sprint all the way up through Ironman, there is a different wattage zone that you need to be in for each race. A sprint, you're in zone 5, 6. There's no holding back. It's as hard as you possibly can go. But then when you get an Ironman, you're down into zone 2, keeping that power even and steady throughout the whole entire day. No big spikes. Try to keep it as smooth as possible. And if you're not paying attention to that, and I've known a handful of athletes that get out there and they get wrapped up into the race and they go too hard, and at the end of the day they're suffering on the run. And I go look at their power files, and it's like, well, here's the answer. So. Yeah.
Well, here's the question a lot of people ask: how do I determine how much power I should be pushing on the bike?
Well, what we do is we'll set you up with a functioning threshold power test. And what we do there, your functioning threshold power is literally the amount of power that you can push consistently for 1 hour. After that, it's going to drop off. You're going to fade. You're going to be done. So what we do for a test, we set you up on since most people don't like to try to push for a solid hour, we set you up on like a 30-minute test. And then we take a percentage of that after we do some super hard intervals, like a 5-minute all-out time trial. And then we get into the actual heart of the test. And we take our numbers from that. And from that number, we determine what your functioning threshold power is. And we set up your zones from there.
And your zones would be your training zones throughout that season or leading up to a race?
Yes. And what we like to do, if we can, and the athletes, if the athlete is capable, test every six weeks so we can see a change. You test at the beginning of the season, early spring, or if you're training throughout the winter, to do a test at the beginning of your training season after your downtime from your last race. And then we set up a zone, and then those zones, if we train properly and we set everything up right, we'll see those zones change throughout the year, and we test accordingly, and we see you get faster and faster.
Just to put it out there, what kind of price range are we looking at for this investment? Because this is pretty spendy, but necessary.
It is. I mean, SRM, that's the gold standard. That's what I ride with. I know a handful of people ride with those. You're going to be spending a wireless version. The newest version, I think, with a Control 8 head is probably about $4,000.
Wow.
You can get a Cork power meter. And with the Cork power meter, you don't have a head unit, so you can use a Garmin. You can use other head units for your bike that will read power, as long as it's amp plus. So you're probably looking in the 12-ish, maybe 15-ish range on the cork. I haven't priced one lately, but one of my athletes got one about a year ago. They ended up investing, and I think it was probably close to 15.
Okay, so that's a good range between 15 and 4,000, but it's one of
And
those
they do,
helpful pieces.
yeah, and they do make some less expensive ones. I'm not a fan of them. It's a little gadget that you glue onto the crank arm, and I'm not into that. So my power meter and the ones with cork are in your crank, in your bottom bracket, so it's reading right down below there. I mean, you're putting the power on the pedal. It's not transferring through the chain into the rear wheel like I think whatever it is, this power tap there in your hub. So there's a little different, but the thing is, if it's consistent, then it really doesn't matter where it comes from. If you're getting consistent reading every time you ride, it doesn't matter what you're using. I just find that you're getting a super accurate reading with an SRM.
All right. If you got a question for Greg, use the hashtag #AskCoachGallagher on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. Thanks very much, Coach.
Thanks, Dave.